Whoops, hit the wrong button again. Someday I'll learn how to do this. Let me check audio. Audio sounds okay. And good morning to you. Okay. Today I thought I would do something different. It has been a while since I have done a live stream. I guess I've been busy or something. But I prepared this a while back because for various reasons. Just because I use TechSmith Snagit a lot, and I use it in a lot of different ways that I think may not be obvious. So I've shown a few of these to people, and they're like, "Whoa, I didn't know that was possible." Or I see other people's screenshots, and it's kind of painful. So I'll just share some of the things that I do with TechSmith Snagit in order to provide better screenshots to my customers, my colleagues for documentation. And while this may seem like kind of a non-important topic, trust me, when given the amount of email and electronic and documentation-based communication we have, I think some of these things are pretty important. And so screenshots are very visual. And so to the extent you can improve the impact of those screenshots and how effective they are for your colleagues, your users, your customers, whatever the case, I think that offers a lot of value. So with that, let me see if I can figure out this whole production studio thing. Okay. So if you haven't heard of it, TechSmith is the name of the software company. They make several products, one of which is the very popular product called Snagit, which does allow you to capture things like screenshots, but it's so much more than that. So whenever I mention Snagit, people will say, "Oh, I just use snip and clip or whatever it's called in Windows," or I use what is it, Green Share or something like that. There are a couple other apps that allow you to take screenshots and have a few additional features, but I'm going to try to make the case that this will be, if you do a lot of work with screenshots, this purchase of a Snagit license is a no-brainer. It is not expensive. If you buy it on sale, you can get it on sale for $50, $60, and it's a perpetual license. You can purchase the $15, $20 a year annual maintenance for the upgrades, but it is a phenomenal value for what you get. And I had to look in my extensive archives, and as far as I can tell, I first purchased Snagit as Snagit 9 back in 2008. And I looked up the price at the time, but it was something like $25, $30 or something. It was extremely cheap, and it's still a great value. The price has gone up, obviously, since 2008, but phenomenal value, still worth every penny. I purchased a copy for my daughter as soon as she started using her PC and doing cybersecurity training. I purchased a copy for her, and as soon as she understood how it works, she says, "Oh, wow. Like when you use a computer without it, you realize, wow, it's like having your hands tied behind your back. It makes it more difficult to do things." So what are some of these tips and tricks? What are some of the features, and what do I use a lot? First of all is the capture library. This is a huge feature, and it may not sound like something that is critical, but once you start using it and relying upon it and having it available to you and super convenient right at your fingertips, I find I use it constantly. So this is my library. I have over 13,800 screenshots, and that's just from the last two versions. It has, you see down below, back to 2019 is as far as this installation captured. And so since 2019, late 2019, I've captured over 13,800 screenshots, Do I utilize all of those? No. However, I regularly, constantly go back a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, in order to find a screenshot that I know I took. So maybe I need to fix something. Maybe I need to update something. Maybe I need to reshare that screenshot, update my documentation. I scroll through my library, approximate date range, narrow down when that occurred, and I can grab that old screenshot. Maybe I edit it, maybe I updated it, whatever the case. I can access that old screenshot. Super valuable given how many screenshots I work with. I also do the inverse. I find a screenshot in order to determine when something happened. So I know a customer had an error. I know I took a screenshot. When was that? Because I'm trying to find files or emails or whatever the case is. And so I will go back and find the screenshot in my library and find the date that I took that. And it's like, okay, so now I know it was on September 30th. And now I need to look for any other clues around that time in order to get more context as to what happened. So I use the library constantly. And in the past, the library was local. So on my desktop, I had a local library. On my laptop, I had a local library. And it was a hassle dealing with that because I would look for a screenshot. It would not be on my desktop. It's like, oh, maybe I took it on my laptop. I couldn't remember. So I'd have to open up my laptop, figure out if I took it there, and try to find it. It was a little bit of a hassle. But TechSmith are clever folks, and so they realized this concern, and you can now choose a shared library or a cloud library such that your library will be synced with say a OneDrive location. And you have several options for this: OneDrive for business, OneDrive personal, and Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud. So you have a pretty good range of options for choosing a cloud-based, SaaS-based shared location so that multiple computers can access this same repository. In my case, I use this so that my desktop, actually my multiple desktops and my laptop can all talk to the same shared library now. Huge benefit for me since I use the library a lot. If you're in kind of a team environment, I suppose you could have a shared library for your team or organization. Not sure what the use cases are for that, but I'm sure there are a few. So the library and shared library now with the latest version, I don't know if that was 21 or 22 or 23, I forget. But as of October 2022, it's a standard feature in Snagit. Next up is a full-featured image editor. And poor Eric, I just happened to be watching a video of his when I was initially doing this presentation. And so I just grabbed a screenshot and this is just a demonstration of some of the things you can do to mark up a screenshot. So you can have arrows, you can have captions, you can have bubbles, you can have graphics. There are all sorts of stamps, as they call it. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'll automatically number. You just click 1, 2, 3, and as you click, it automatically numbers those bullet points on your screenshot. So you can just do all sorts of things. And you see I have highlighted in red the different features, just kind of showing how I highlight different sections to draw attention to those fields on a screenshot. So really phenomenal, very, very full-featured image editor. And since I started using Snagit and this editor, I have stopped needing Photoshop. There are a few things in Photoshop that you can do for kind of business images, not photo editing or really high advanced color correction, things like that. But for business images, there are a few things you can do in Photoshop that I haven't been able to do in Snagit, but those are rare. Those are the exception. So just phenomenal capabilities in marking up a screenshot and drawing attention. And you see over here, we have a couple palettes. These are some of the tools and features that you can have: blur, simplify, magic wand, crop, highlighter, the steps, eraser. So you can really do all sorts of things. And then right behind my head here, You have borders, edges, color replacement. So some fairly advanced image editing features that I would not expect to be in a screenshot editor tool. So very, very handy functionality. I use these constantly. I have my presets, preferred styles, so line thickness, color. It's just my pattern of things that I like to use. Red, yellow, green are just my standard 3 things for highlighting fields. And it makes it really easy to communicate with customers. Next up is resizing an image. So you'll notice in the bottom right there, or bottom there, 1384 by 960 pixels. So I grabbed a screenshot on screen. That's how large it is. But oftentimes you don't actually need the image full size in order to communicate what you're trying to convey with a given screenshot. It doesn't need to be a 4K image when it's embedded in a Word doc as a 3-inch image, just as a sample. People get the point. It's like, okay, I see this is a video. I understand what you're trying to say. I don't actually need to read the code in this video screenshot. So what you can do in Snagit is actually resize the image. So it'll resize, resample the image, and shrink it down. So here I'm choosing to resize in terms of percent, which is what I usually use. And it's like, okay, I see how large it is relative to the screen. So you see it's at 60% display down here at the bottom. So I'm going to shrink it down to 50% because I don't need that level of resolution. And so here I type 50%, shrinks it down to 692 by 480 pixels. And guess what? It may not seem like a big deal, but when you have 50 screenshots in user documentation, it really affects your file size. And so I just did this with a couple images really quickly to show you the difference. This is a Word doc at the top. Image size test 1 has a full-size image, and image size test 2 has smaller images. And the difference is 485 KB versus 186 KB. So just in my very simple quick test with a few screenshots, it's 1/3 the size when I use these smaller screenshots. So that's another feature I use heavily. And I don't think I included it, but I had a, phone call. I had a case where someone was emailing me and I was cleaning out my inbox and I said, find all large emails so I can delete the large emails or emails with a large attachment. They had something like a 12 megabyte profile photo in their email footer. They had not resized their headshot image in their email footer, and it was a full-size studio quality JPEG shoved in as a 1-inch postage stamp at the bottom of their email. So when they emailed me, I got a 12 megabyte attachment. When I replied to them, I sent that 12 megabyte attachment back. Then they replied again, I got their footer again. So now I've got a 24 megabyte email from them. And a back and forth with 10 emails back and forth, I have a 150 megabyte email from them just because, in the case, I think it was Gmail, included all of the thread in that single email. It was crazy. And so it's things like that that really matter. Not everyone notices it, but it's just taking care of your customers and your documentation and making sure that your images aren't excessively large. So resizing the image itself, fully resizing, really helps to save space and just makes things more legible. You're not having to resize the image in an email. You can just resize and Snagit, paste it right in your email, and it's not 3 monitors wide when someone opens it. Next up is resizing canvas. And if you're not familiar with this, this may seem like an odd concept, but this is an example here where I have my logo and I have a large version of the logo and then I resize it to a small version. So maybe I have a large version for a pamphlet or a brochure or something that requires printing or high resolution. Well, when it's in my email footer, I don't need a large image. I just need a small image. No one really cares. And that 1-inch by 2-inch logo is perfectly fine. at that lower resolution in the native size in my email footer. That's fine. So that's a resize image. But resize canvas does sometimes come up. So for example, this is an example where I didn't want the logo size to change, but I needed additional white space around that logo because I needed clear borders around that logo in order for it to be positioned properly. And another example is this. And so I have a different image that I use for social media where I put the MVP logo on there. And I'll show you, I need a large border around there due to the bizarre image, profile image constraints of social media. And so just to show you what that looks like, this is a Twitter profile. If you've ever tried to upload a Twitter profile image, you know it has these bizarre like sizing requirements, and you'll upload an image this big and it'll only show a bar in the center. So if you upload your logo, it just grabs a sliver of the center of your logo. So you have to have this white space above and below your logo just to get your logo to be sized appropriately. And then there's a desktop view and a mobile view, and getting all that to work in those template guidelines is real hassle. So that's what I use Resize Canvas for most recently. And here's an example of my YouTube page. So I had to do 10 iterations of Resize Canvas to figure out how do I navigate this weird YouTube image editor in order to get this image to display appropriately on my YouTube homepage. So that's why you would want to use Resize Canvas. And let me just see how things are going over here. Okay, so Resize Canvas, you may not think about it a lot, but comes in very handy. Next up, multiple capture presets. So one very cool feature of the Snagit capture tool is that I can have different profiles or different presets for different types of captures. Sometimes I may want a border. Sometimes I may not want any border. Sometimes usually I do not want to see my mouse cursor. Sometimes I might want to see the mouse cursor so the customer sees that I'm selecting an item in a list and they see my cursor sitting there. It's a little more intuitive to see that. Other times I may want to do a panoramic scrolling capture. So scrolling to the left, scrolling up and down. So I can have different profiles or different presets for my different captures. So I'm not having to fiddle with settings just to take a certain type of capture. So one of the things I use this for is, you'll notice I have a preset called scale 60%, scale 70%, and then I have my normal one, image shadow editor. And the reason I have a scale 60 and 70 is when I'm in a webinar, in a training, watching some video, when the presenter has a full screen presentation and I'm watching full screen, I'll do a screen capture. And if I'm capturing my full screen with their full PowerPoint presentation, it's a very large image. And if I'm pasting that into my notes, I found I don't need that. So you can see here, let me see if I can get this to work. This is a live demo, so capture. Okay, so I'm going to launch Snagit, and I'm going to choose my preset. And so I'm first just going to do a full screen capture. So I'm going to hit capture, and is it going to let me? Oh, oops, I had a timer on there. So here I can do full screen, and live demo. Okay, let me turn off time delay. Let me just do my normal screen capture. So I can do a full screen capture here. And you can see if I bring in my editor here, it's so large that I don't need all this. And sure, I could resize it, I could scale it down, I could shrink the image, but that's all manual. And if I'm in the middle of a training class, I found, okay, I can't manage that and pay attention. So, well, if I'm just resizing this to 70% or 65%, I realized that I could configure that in a preset. So you'll see here, I have a preset called scale to 60. And so I can have control print screen give me a 70% screenshot. Takes a screenshot, shrinks the image to 70%, puts it in my clipboard, and I'm ready to paste it in my notes. So I have one for 70% and 60%, depending on what size of the presentation I'm trying to capture. So that's been very handy. So, you can have different presets assigned to different keyboard shortcuts if you want in order to automatically capture and have pre-configured types of screenshots. So very, very handy if you're doing on-the-fly things and you find yourself consistently making the same changes to a screenshot. Speaking of making changes to a screenshot, part of these presets are capture effects. So my scale to 60%, my scale to 70%, what it's doing is it's capturing a certain image size and it's applying certain effects automatically. And that's what this shows, auto capture effects. I can have any number of effects applied to my screenshot immediately, automatically, zero effort. I just hit print screen, take a picture of the screen, or control shifts, print screen, whatever, and it can automatically apply any number of effects here. So I can put a border on it, I can apply a shadow, I can have image filters, apply a watermark, and then I can scale the image down. All of that with one shortcut, and it automatically handles that. So as long as I can remember Control Shift Print Screen and what that does, or I just choose my preset and click Capture, it takes care of that for me. So massive time saver, really, really refines your workflow when you're doing a lot of screenshots. Next up, for lack of a better term, rearrange image. So in this example at the top, I did what's called a panoramic capture, and that's horizontal scrolling. And if you work with Business Central, you can probably see how this is valuable. So what I did is I did a panoramic capture of a horizontal scroll of order line items. And you know that you can have so many fields that scroll across that item grid. You're scrolling left and right, and there's a lot of fields. You're like, I need to capture one at the end, and I don't want to rearrange the field. So sure, you can get a really wide capture, but it's obviously a hassle. If you paste this into an email, into a document, if it's width of your monitor or width of the email, the image is so small that the fields are unreadable. So one option, not the most refined, but one option is to just rearrange the image. So in Snagit, it's very easy. You just highlight the section you want to cut, you just drag it down below, and now I've taken that very wide horizontal panoramic scrolling image, I broke it into two images, and now one above another, I have two sections of fields that are much more readable when they're stacked. So now I can paste this into an email, paste this into a document, and make it legible for a user. And it's kind of obvious what's going on. It's somewhat intuitive. So they should be able to follow what's going on. This way you can show something that's very wide without having to compress it to the point of being unreadable. And this takes seconds. Super easy to do. A little fancier version of this that I do for documentation, and I often do it for screenshots that I even email if it's a few quick changes, is recompose an image, for lack of a better term. I don't know if there's a formal term for this, but I just came up with the term recompose. So you'll notice here, this is the list page of sales invoices from Business Central. And it's fine, it's readable, but it's really wide. There's a lot of empty space on the left and right borders, and there's external document number column, which is always blank in this case. There's a location code, assigned user ID. Those columns have no value. So it's not communicating anything. So can I just remove those? Well, yeah. In the Snagit editor, it's very easy to highlight the sections you want. You just drag them over and you consolidate and recompose this image. This is the same screenshot. I just got rid of all the blank space. So now I can paste this image into an email, and the user is not having to zoom in, zoom out, resize and figure out, okay, what are you trying to tell me here? I've consolidated this into a much more visually compact image, And this works so much better for documentation. And if you're including this in a doc, this can size so much better and communicate so much better for your readers. So I highly recommend. I do this all the time. It does take, 10, 20, 30 seconds more, but I can just drag and drop portions of the image that I want, get my point across. As long as it has the data I need, I can get rid of all the blank data that I want. And it looks like I left external document number in here. I just made that column narrower to save space, but you can get rid of that. So you can do all sorts of recompose operations in the Snagit editor. Very, very powerful tool. The next one is grab text. And this is kind of a novelty, I'll admit. It's an OCR feature where you can have an image in or from your phone, from a screenshot, whatever. And once it's in Snagit, you can just right click on that image and choose grab text. So right click, click on grab text, and it automatically scans your image, finds all the text. And if you've ever used OCR, you know that typically like non-professional OCR is not perfect, but it usually is good enough to save me time. So in this example, I grabbed a screenshot of a serial number or grabbed a photo of a serial number on a computer. And rather than me trying to type that out, click grab text, and there you go. And it did actually capture the serial number properly. Now, right below, you see MFG date I710 instead of 1710. So it's not perfect, but you can quickly reference the image and you can make some corrections. But overall, this serial number was correct. And I am able to copy that serial number, paste it into a support page lookup, and go on my day. So very, very handy feature. And now that I'm getting older, my vision is not as good. So I'm having to regularly take pictures of minuscule serial numbers on products. In the back corner, you crawl back behind your desk, take a picture of the back of the PC, whatever. And so I'm doing this more and more, bringing the image into Snagit so that I can just capture the serial number. So novelty, but it is a time saver. Next up is video. So Snagit used to just be screenshots, but TechSmith also makes a product called Camtasia that is a full video capture, lightweight video editing tool. Fantastic product as well. But what's nice is they added video to Snagit. So in addition to taking static image screenshots, you can now record quick videos. Now, this isn't a full-featured image or a video editor. This isn't OBS or, in my case, vMix or Adobe Premiere. But for support videos or instructional videos, it's fantastic. So here I am able to choose video on the Snagit Capture tool. And this is an actual example that I took of a video that I took for a customer. So I was trying to explain how do you go into job queue entries, make a modification and save it. And there's 35 steps, what to click. You got to edit it. You got to set it on pause. You got to go in here, change this field. Then you got to go back out, make sure it's saved properly. I was like, oh, I don't want to type all that out via email. And so I said, well, let me just record a video. So I recorded a 2-minute video here, showed how to go into BC, how to find the job queue entries, how to click on that particular entry, set it on hold or pause or whatever that's called, edit it, save it, and go back out. And emailed a 2-minute video to the customer. They're like, great, that was awesome. I made the change. And, they were able to do it whenever they wanted. So totally asynchronous, didn't require a Zoom or a GoToMeeting or a Teams meeting or anything. I was just able to send the 2-minute video. Took me 3 minutes to create, send it off. Took them 2 minutes to figure out how to do it. So very, very efficient way of communicating when a few screenshots or 10 screenshots might get cumbersome. Just record a quick video. And it can include audio as well. I don't think it includes camera. I haven't tested that, but in this case, I've only used it to capture my screen and record a screen video. I haven't tried to capture my camera or webcam in there, like what Camtasia would normally do. So with that, hope that was helpful. I find TechSmith Snagit to be far more than just a screenshot or capture tool. It has so many features that I use to save so much time. And as you saw, I take thousands, well over 5,000 screenshots a year. So I am perhaps slightly overusing it, but I use it on all my desktops, my laptop, and purchased it for my colleagues. So great tool, highly recommend it. If you already have it, I recommend using some of these additional hidden little tools that will save you time. And yeah, hope that was helpful. And cheers. Have a good weekend.